This is a quiet moment designed for rest. Nothing here needs your attention. You don't need to listen closely, and you don't need to follow the words. Allow your breathing to slow naturally, and let sleep begin in its own time. This moment remains unchanged. Nothing begins. Nothing resolves. The space around you stays steady and neutral, without movement that needs attention. Breathing continues naturally. There is no need to guide it. The body remains supported, resting without effort or instruction. Thoughts may appear briefly, then soften on their own. They do not need to be followed. They do not need to reach a conclusion. They can pass quietly, without direction. There is no signal to respond to. No sound requires focus. No awareness is necessary. The night continues evenly, without interruption. The body does not need adjustment. Muscles can remain where they are. Stillness does not need to deepen. It simply remains. Nothing here asks for participation. Nothing asks to be noticed. This space exists in the background, steady and consistent. The mind can become less active without being told to slow down. Awareness can fade gently without effort. There is no transition happening. No change to observe. No moment to mark. This calm does not move forward and does not fall behind. The night holds everything evenly. No part of it requires attention. No part of it needs correction. Rest does not need encouragement. It develops quietly when nothing interrupts it. The body continues resting. The environment remains the same. This moment stays neutral and undisturbed. There is no expectation to listen. No expectation to understand. This is simply a steady background where sleep can continue forming naturally. Nothing changes. Nothing needs to change. God, tonight I am not gathering myself. I am not centering. I am not bringing focus. I am loosening my grip. I have held many things through this day. Responsibilities, thoughts, small decisions that stacked quietly. I do not carry them further into this night. I place them down, not carefully, not perfectly, but honestly. I do not sort what matters more. I do not decide what should stay. I leave the whole weight here without separating it. God, I am not asking you to fix anything right now. I am allowing you to hold what I release. That is enough for this hour. There are thoughts that return out of habit, not because they are urgent, but because they are familiar. I do not follow them. I let them pass without resistance. I am not alert tonight. I am not preparing. I am not staying ready. I step out of readiness and into trust. Trust does not need effort. It does not need explanation. It exists even when I stop paying attention. God, I allow this prayer to continue even when my mind wanders. Even when I stop listening clearly. Even when awareness softens. This prayer does not depend on my focus. It does not weaken when I rest. It remains steady without my help. I am not holding myself together right now. I am allowing myself to be held. The night does not require my participation. Time moves without me directing it. Breath continues without instruction. I do not measure this moment. I do not check progress. I do not wait for a shift. God, I trust that nothing essential will be lost if I stop monitoring everything. I trust that rest does not mean neglect. If emotions surface quietly, I let them be. If nothing surfaces at all, I let that be too. This prayer does not need variety. It does not need movement. It does not need to arrive anywhere. I release the habit of checking myself, of asking, am I calm yet? Of trying to feel rest. Rest does not need to be felt to be real. God, I step back from effort, from control, from inner commentary. I do not need to stay present. I do not need to stay aware. I do not need to stay engaged. Let this prayer remain even when I drift away from it. Let trust remain even when I fall asleep inside it. I am not asking for signs. I am not asking for reassurance. I am allowing the night to be what it is under your care. God, take what I no longer hold. Take it without hurry. Take it without explanation. I remain here briefly. Then I rest. And this prayer continues without me. God, this night does not depend on me. It does not rely on my attention. It does not wait for my understanding. It is already held by you. I am not sustaining this moment. I am not maintaining peace. I am not keeping watch. I step aside and allow you to remain. This night moves forward without my guidance. Time continues without my involvement. Breath continues without my direction. God, I do not need to stay awake to keep things from falling apart. I do not need to remain aware to keep order. I do not need to monitor my thoughts to keep them safe. I allow myself to be absent from effort. There are hours in this night that I will not remember. Moments I will not witness. Time that will pass without my awareness. I trust that you remain present in all of it. I do not assign tasks to this prayer. I do not give it responsibility. I allow it to exist without purpose beyond presence. God, cover this night where my awareness fades. Remain where my thoughts dissolve. Stay where I am no longer listening. I do not need to prepare for rest. Rest is already allowed. There is no danger in letting go completely. Nothing essential requires my supervision. Nothing fragile depends on my vigilance. I release the belief that I must stay connected to remain safe. This prayer does not weaken when I stop engaging with it. It does not disappear when I drift away. It continues quietly without my attention. God, let this night be guarded without my participation. Let peace remain without my maintenance. I do not need to understand how you work in the unseen hours. I do not need confirmation. I do not need awareness. I trust what continues even when I am no longer present. If my thoughts return briefly, I do not follow them. If they fade completely, I do not resist that either. I allow myself to become uninvolved, unaware, unconcerned. This prayer does not ask me to stay. It allows me to leave without guilt. God, remain active where I am inactive. Remain attentive where I am resting. Remain faithful where I am absent. Nothing needs my protection right now. Nothing needs my effort. Nothing needs my attention. I step out of the way. This night continues under you. This prayer continues under you. Everything remains covered without my presence. God, I do not come with celebration tonight. I do not come with strong emotion. I come with recognition. This day existed. This night exists now. And that is enough to acknowledge. I do not list blessings. I do not compare outcomes. I do not measure what went well or poorly. I simply recognize what was given and what remains. There were moments today that passed unnoticed. Ordinary minutes, unremarkable hours. They did not stand out, yet they carried life through me. I acknowledge them quietly. God, I do not thank you for results. I do not thank you for answers. I thank you for continuation, for breath that did not stop, for time that kept moving, for presence that did not withdraw. I do not force meaning onto this day. I do not search for lessons. I do not extract growth. I allow things to be what they were without interpretation. There were things I used without thinking. Strength, patience, attention. I acknowledge that they were available when I needed them, without asking where they came from. God, this gratitude does not lift my mood. It does not energize me. It does not motivate me. It settles me. I recognize that I was carried through moments I did not prepare for. I was sustained through hours I did not plan carefully. I do not dramatize that fact. I simply name it. There were things that did not improve today, situations that remain unresolved, questions that remain open. I do not withhold gratitude because of them. I allow gratitude to exist without demanding completion. God, I acknowledge what was sufficient, not exceptional, not impressive, simply sufficient. This prayer does not rise upward. It stays low and steady. It does not expand. It does not intensify. It remains grounded. I do not thank you for feelings. I do not thank you for peace. I thank you for stability that did not require my awareness. There were hours I will not remember clearly, moments I did not mark. I trust they were still held even when unnoticed. God, I do not hold gratitude tightly. I do not repeat it with insistence. I allow it to rest like everything else tonight. This prayer does not seek response. It does not wait for confirmation. It exists as acknowledgement only. I recognize that this night is possible because the day ended, and the day was possible because something sustained it. I do not name that something fully. I simply acknowledge it before you. If sleep comes, let this quiet gratitude remain beneath it. If sleep delays, let this recognition be enough. God, I acknowledge without explanation, without emotion, without effort. This is gratitude that does not speak loudly. It stays, then it rests. God, tonight I do not come strong. I do not come centered. I do not come with clarity. I come as I am, without correcting myself first. I am tired in ways that do not resolve quickly. Not dramatic tiredness, not exhaustion that asks for attention. Just a quiet lack of strength that follows me into the night. I do not try to overcome it. I do not speak against it. I allow it to be seen without turning it into a problem. God, I do not need to prove faith tonight. I do not need to sound confident. I do not need to speak correctly. I am allowed to arrive incomplete. There are moments when I do not feel resilient, when I do not feel capable, when I do not feel steady inside. I do not hide those moments from you. I do not explain them away. I release the idea that prayer requires strength, that presence requires energy, that trust requires effort. I am not holding myself upright right now. I am not stabilizing my thoughts. I am not managing my emotions. I allow myself to lean without knowing where the support begins. God, weakness does not disqualify me here. Silence does not distance me. Lack of focus does not remove me from your presence. I do not ask to be made strong immediately. I do not ask to feel better. I only ask that I am allowed to remain here as I am. If my mind wanders, it wanders from tiredness, not rebellion. If my awareness fades, it fades from honesty, not neglect. This prayer does not lift me. It does not energize me. It does not improve my state. It allows me to stop pretending that I am more capable than I feel. God, I do not correct my weakness tonight. I place it here without apology. I trust that you do not require me to be strong in order to be held. I trust that rest is not earned by effort. If sleep comes early, it comes over weakness. If it comes late, this weakness remains allowed. I do not monitor myself. I do not check whether I am calm. I do not ask whether this prayer is working. I remain here briefly, then I rest without resolving myself. God, stay with what is fragile. Stay with what is tired. Stay with what does not hold together well. I do not need to carry myself tonight. I am allowed to stop. This prayer remains even when I cannot. God, tonight I do not come with understanding. I do not come with insight. I do not come with clarity about what you are doing. I come without answers, and I allow that to be enough. There are things I do not understand about my life, about timing, about silence, about why some things change slowly and others do not change at all. I do not try to resolve that tonight. I am not searching for meaning in this hour. I am not interpreting signs. I am not listening for direction. I am simply remaining here without needing to know. God, I release the habit of explaining you to myself, of fitting you into understanding, of needing everything to make sense before I can rest. I allow mystery to remain, not as something threatening, but as something unfinished. There are moments when faith feels quiet, not strong, not expressive, just present without language. I allow this kind of faith tonight. I do not ask why certain doors remained closed. I do not ask why some prayers changed shape. I do not ask why some answers never arrived. Those questions can exist without being asked right now. God, I stay even when I do not understand you. I remain even when nothing is explained. I am here without conditions. This prayer does not seek reassurance. It does not ask for confirmation. It does not wait for resolution. It simply stays. I let go of the pressure to make sense of everything before I rest. Understanding is not a requirement for peace. There are parts of your work I will not see clearly. There are reasons I will not know yet. I do not resist that reality tonight. I am not stepping away from you because I do not understand. I am stepping closer without explanation. God, I allow this prayer to exist without conclusions, without summaries, without lessons. I do not need to learn anything tonight. I do not need to grow. I do not need to progress. I only need permission to remain. If my thoughts attempt to solve, I let them slow. If they attempt to question, I let them rest. This prayer does not argue with mystery. It allows it. God, stay with me in the parts that do not make sense. Stay where I cannot name what you are doing. Stay where I cannot see ahead. I trust that understanding is not always immediate and not always necessary for rest. If sleep comes, it comes without answers. If it delays, this presence remains enough. I do not resolve you tonight. I do not define you. I do not explain this moment. I stay. You stay. Understanding can wait. God, tonight I am not reaching for you. I am not trying to get closer. I am acknowledging that you are already nearer than my thoughts, nearer than my attention, nearer than my awareness. I do not need to move toward you in this moment. I do not need to focus. I do not need to concentrate my mind. You are present even when my mind drifts away. There are thoughts passing through me right now. Some are clear. Some are half-formed. Some repeat without meaning. I do not follow them. I allow them to pass without assuming they create distance. God, you are not waiting at the end of clarity. You are not reached only through understanding. You are present even when my thinking becomes quiet, even when it dissolves completely. I do not need to hold my awareness steady. I do not need to remain spiritually alert. Your nearness does not depend on my effort. There are moments when I lose track of myself, when I forget what I was thinking, when awareness fades briefly. I trust that you remain there even when I am no longer aware of being here. God, I release the idea that prayer requires attention to be valid. That connection requires focus to be real. That closeness must be felt to exist. I allow this prayer to continue beneath my thinking, beneath my listening, beneath my consciousness. If my thoughts become slower, you remain. If they stop forming clearly, you remain. If sleep begins quietly, you remain. I do not need to check whether I am still praying. I do not need to monitor my inner state. This prayer does not disappear when I stop noticing it. God, you are closer than my effort, closer than my words, closer than my understanding of you. I do not need to bring myself together. I do not need to arrive fully. I am already within your presence even when I feel scattered. This night does not separate me from you. Sleep does not distance me. Silence does not remove me. I allow myself to rest inside a nearness that does not fluctuate. I do not lean toward you tonight. I rest where you already are. If my awareness fades completely, this prayer remains intact. If I wake briefly, you are still near. God, I trust a closeness that does not require maintenance, a presence that does not withdraw when I stop paying attention. I remain here for a moment, then I rest, and you remain closer than anything I could think. God, tonight I do not expect movement. I do not expect progress. I do not expect anything to shift or change. I allow this moment to remain exactly as it is. I release the idea that something must be happening for this night to matter, that growth must be active, that healing must be noticeable. There are moments meant for becoming, and there are moments meant for pause. Tonight is not asking for becoming. It is asking for rest. God, I do not wait for insight. I do not listen for direction. I do not scan my thoughts for signs of change. I allow stillness without purpose. This prayer does not initiate anything. It does not activate process. It does not set intention. It simply exists. I give myself permission to remain unfinished tonight. Not in a broken way. Not in a failing way. Just unfinished and allowed. There are seasons when nothing moves forward, when things settle instead of advance, when life breathes inward. I do not resist that rhythm tonight. God, I trust that pause is not absence, that stillness is not neglect, that nothing happening is sometimes exactly what is needed. I do not require reassurance that this night is productive. I do not need proof that something is working. This prayer does not ask you to do more. It allows you to do nothing visible. I release the pressure to mark time with meaning, to turn hours into lessons, to justify rest. The night passes quietly, without commentary, without achievement, without demand. God, I am not waiting for this prayer to reach somewhere. I am not waiting for it to finish a task. I allow this hour to exist without function. If thoughts pass through, they pass without instruction. If awareness fades, it fades without concern. There is no urgency attached to this moment, no timeline that must be respected. God, I remain here without expectation, without anticipation, without evaluation. I trust that you do not require constant movement to remain present. I do not hurry this night. I do not prepare the next moment. I do not reach for tomorrow. This prayer does not move. It rests. If sleep comes, it comes into a space that is already unoccupied by effort. If sleep delays, this pause remains sufficient. God, I allow nothing to happen, and I trust that this allowance is not wasted. This moment stays, then it passes, and that is enough. God, tonight I do not bring careful words. I do not form complete sentences. I do not shape this prayer correctly. I allow silence to speak where words stop. I release the belief that prayer must sound like prayer to be received by you. that it must be clear, that it must be intentional, that it must be complete. There are moments when language becomes effort, when thoughts refuse to organize, when meaning feels distant. I do not force prayer through that resistance. God, I allow myself to be quiet before you. Not focused, not expressive, not attentive in a disciplined way, just quiet. This silence is not avoidance. It is not distance. It is not indifference. It is rest. I do not fill this moment with requests. I do not explain myself. I do not justify my stillness. I trust that you are not uncomfortable with my quiet, that you do not require articulation to remain near. There are prayers that exist beneath words, beneath understanding, beneath attention. I allow this prayer to remain there. God, I do not correct my silence tonight. I do not turn it into effort. I do not apologize for it. If thoughts appear briefly, they dissolve again. If no thoughts appear, I let that be. This prayer does not rise. It does not develop. It does not move forward. It rests. I do not worry whether this prayer is enough. I do not ask whether it is working. I allow it to exist without evaluation. God, I trust that you hear what I do not say, that you understand what I cannot form, that you remain present even when I am silent. This moment does not need improvement. It does not need direction. It does not need meaning attached to it. Silence is allowed here. Stillness is allowed here. Incompleteness is allowed here. If sleep comes, this silence remains prayer. If sleep delays, this silence remains prayer. I do not return to words. I do not try again. I remain quiet. God, stay with this silence, not as absence, not as distance, but as rest. Nothing more is needed tonight. God, tonight nothing is late. Nothing is behind schedule. Nothing has missed its moment. I release the sense of urgency that followed me through the day. I do not need to catch up with anything. I do not need to recover lost time. I do not need to prepare for what comes next. This hour is not chasing me. There is no deadline in this night. No expectation waiting for completion. No moment that requires acceleration. Everything is allowed to move slowly or not move at all. God, I notice how deeply hurry lives inside me. Even when I rest, part of me stays alert, as if something might be required at any second. I allow that habit to loosen now. I am not arriving late to this moment. I am not behind in my life. I am not failing because things take time. You are not rushed with me. You are not measuring progress. You are not counting delays. I release the pressure to make use of this night, to optimize rest, to sleep efficiently, to wake up improved. Rest does not need to be productive. Sleep does not need to justify itself. God, I step out of internal scheduling, out of timelines, out of imagined consequences. Nothing essential will be lost if I slow completely. Nothing meaningful depends on my speed right now. I allow the rhythm of this night to be slower than thought, slower than planning, slower than concern. There is no next step required here. No preparation. No readiness. If sleep comes quickly, it comes without rush. If it comes slowly, there is no problem with that. God, you are not ahead of me. You are not waiting for me to catch up. You are present in this pace, whatever it is. I do not accelerate my breathing. I do not hurry my thoughts toward calm. I do not rush myself into rest. This prayer does not move faster. It does not progress. It remains. I trust that time itself is not an enemy tonight, that slowness is not loss, that waiting is not failure. God, I remain here without urgency, without timeline, without internal pressure. Nothing is required next. Nothing is overdue. Nothing is falling behind. This night unfolds at its own pace, and that pace is enough. I allow myself to move as slowly as this moment asks.